Well, hello, and welcome to the street. Let's go ahead and see what we can get into. Ghost to ghost.
So bid you all good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Across that globe of ours, all 25 time zones, whatever it is, prolifically covered by this program, Ghost to Ghost AM. Good morning. I'm Art Bell, filling in for George Norrie on this evening, this ghostly evening. And we're going to do something a little different this year. We're going to do unscreened Ghost to Ghost calls. Now, there will be certain rules, and I hope you will try and abide by them. Rule number one is only one ghost story per caller. I repeat, one ghost story per caller. Number two, please try and use anything but a cell phone. I like cell phones. I've got one. They're useful in cases of emergency, but they're terrible for talk radio. Now, if you have a ghost story that is just so good that we only have to hear it, and you can only use a cell phone, so be it. But it better be awfully good to suffer over the indignities of a cell phone connection. And of course, please, only the very scariest stories. And I mean the scariest stories. I'll give you an example here in a moment. As a matter of fact, actually, I'll kind of pepper examples throughout the program. These were sent to me in the last several days, and I picked a few choice ones, and I'll sort of drop them in. But once again, this is an annual event. We only get to do it one day during the year. That is to say, when we have nothing but ghost stories. Now, I would prefer they be first-person ghost stories if possible. In other words, not something that your mom was told by your grandma, and so forth and so on. So, if it's a first-person ghost story, it's better. If it's not on a cell phone, it's great. Remembering only one story per customer. And oh, by the way, we took a Bell family Halloween photo. It's up on the website, right in the upper middle. If you go to coastcruiseband.com, you'll see it. I had fun doing that. The three of us. By the way, for those who are inquiring, all cats are fine. All our cats are just fine. Yay, Abby, and our import Dolly, doing very, very well indeed. So a picture of the three of us, myself, Aaron, and of course Asia. That's on the website. And then if you click on the link in, there's a picture of just Asia there that I took the other day. I think it's really, really cute. But once again, this is Ghost to Ghost, folks. So let me run over it one last time. One story per caller, one ghost story, your very best effort. If you can do it on a landline instead of a cell phone, well, bless you. Remembering you're going to let it, we're not going to use screeners. So that means let it ring, ring, ring. And that way you'll not be charged for any on hold time or anything of that sort. We'll pick it up when we're ready to talk to you. And only the very scariest stories. I think this program has established over decades now, that there is indeed some sort of consciousness, some sort of continuation after death. Now, the nature of that continuation, we have not established. But with the EVPs, with other proof, we've established pretty well, I think, that indeed there is some continuation following physical death. Ghosts would be certainly one mainline piece of proof of that continuation. So if you have a good ghost story, here we are. Now, if you're west of the Rockies, the number to call is 1-800-618-8255. 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. Remember, I will answer the phone, so it is up to you to have the radio turned all the way down right away as soon as you hear me answer. First time callers, area code 818-501-4721. Area code 818-501-4721. Wildcard lines, we've got several of those. Pretty good chance to get through. Area code 818-501-4109. 818-501-4109. Outside the country, international line, call up your operator. Never connect you, no matter where you are in the world, to our toll-free international line, which is 1-800-893-0903. 1-800-893-0903. In a moment, Ghost to Ghost AM. Let's begin with something Kathy sent in from Springfield, Illinois. Art, let me preface this by saying my grandfather and I were very close. I know he would never let any harm to me in any way. Grandfather passed away in February 1978. He had a heart attack in the bathroom of his home at about 3 in the morning. My grandmother was told, oh, we just came staying with her at the home. About 3 weeks later, I was reading on the bed and stared at it. Something caused me to look up. Coming out of the wall, closer, but without the ground out there. It was transparent. I could see right through him, but he still had form. Words can never express how horrible he looked. It looked like he had dug his own way out of the grave. I had a pinstripe suit. I buried him. He had what appeared to be Spanish moss dripping from him. I live in Springfield, Illinois. Believe me, we don't have Spanish moss around here. I began to scream and get out of bed to run when he suddenly disappeared. Now I didn't tell anybody because I was afraid people would think I was crazy. This would be the end of the story, but 20 years ago, I found out my son had seen the same identical apparition. As close as we can estimate it, it was about 3 months later, and in the front bedroom of our house, other family members had seen dark forms standing over the bathroom, city doors and lights that turn on and off, and all this for no apparent reason. We're now 58 and 40, respectively, and we'll never forget the sight. Was it a ghost? A demon? I'll never know, but I know we saw it, I believe. And of course, that's what happens after you see for yourself, you believe. Let's go to the first time caller line and say good morning. You are live at Ghost to Ghost at number 1.
Hi, Art. How are you doing?
Very well indeed, thank you.
I'm so glad to talk to you. I racked my brain for a ghost story and I couldn't think of it. What I really want to ask you.
Well, this is the whole ghost stories only. There are ghost stories you should be calling.
I know, but I want to ask your AOL.com so I could get a picture of you and your family.
All right. There's a picture of our family on the website right now. That would be ghoststories.com. Now, so the very first call was the violation rules. Ghost stories only. Ghost stories only. I'm trusting you tonight because this is all on the screen. I'm just putting it on the air. When something is said that you go on the air, I can certainly eliminate it, but this is on the screen. That means it's the honor system. So ghost stories only. What's the law, please? You are on the air. Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Raul. I'm from Tacoma, Washington.
All right.
I'm going to just tell you a real quick story. Probably I'd say about 20 years ago, I was living with this friend of mine in this duplex. And on the side of the blue, all of a sudden, I started getting all these scratches on my soft parts of my body, like underneath my legs or my calves.
Are wire scratches or like calf scratches or?
It looked like there was at least always 4 like rapes. It looked like I was getting raped on my back by my friends would joke and laugh. Hey, look at your girlfriend, making jokes like that. And I was saying, hey, I don't know what I'm getting here, And then my dad in the medical field, he said, well, it's probably just some, psoriasis or something. And I was thinking, well, I don't know. And then I caught what kind of made me think more about it. I saw like show with like spots on it. It was kind of like that's what was the origin back in the 80s. You know, it was like about paranormal stuff.
Were these like human scratches and like nails from nails?
Yeah, it was like nail scratches, just like everything would almost pop up almost to the point where it would almost black with you know, but then it would go away just as you never saw it was happening. Just very, very, very vaguely.
Was it something like you were asleep or?
It could just occur at any time. We could just be sitting there at that time in the early 80s, we're sitting there watching some MTV or something, just sitting around hanging out, and all of a sudden I just, hey, look guys, I pulled down my shirt, right on there, like these ring marks, you know, and they caught my, like I say, that show, you know, with an narrator, and they showed the same similar instance to this guy that was in like Boston, and you know, just, you know, people everywhere goes off, but it's just so weird. Finally, when we moved from that duplex, it just went away. And then finally, as years went on, like people would say, yeah, you were like a state audit. I didn't even know what that was. You know, I didn't know about all this stuff and started listening to your show. Until I started hearing more about it, and I said, you know what, these things, I'm going to call Art. I'm going to do it. You're here enough. I get the first call.
This was a second call. This was your nightmare. Scratches. I would like to be absolutely sure that it's a ghost, but scratches are already considering pain. Barely felt when they occurred, but then I'm coming up as big welts. Mr. Rockies, good morning, you're on the air.
Hi.
You're on a cell phone, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
So that means your story has to be excellent.
It is very good.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
No, right on the air, yes.
Okay. This is why I believe in ghosts. For 10 years, I was stationed at F.E. Warren Air Force Base, Cheyenne, Wyoming. I was a security policeman, and we did maintenance, so we did security for all the missiles that were in the missile field. There were thousands of people that have been through this Air Force Base, and all of them, I bet, can repeat this story. All right, the story goes, one day, a missile maintenance crew was out in the field. While they were working on the missile, a set of arms clamped a man. If you can imagine picking up your finger in the air and grabbing it with a pair of pliers, that's what these arms are like. Because
why would everybody know about this story?
Because when you finish, you're going to understand this is a very type of story. But I've never heard it repeated. So, this missile was held in place by these large clamps because it can take a direct hit from the nuclear missile. So these things are very, very solid. So while he was working on the missile, for some reason, this clamp activated and pinched the man almost in half. So very quickly, they made a call back to the base, and as quickly as possible, by helicopter, they flew out a medical crew. The man wasn't doing very well. His blood pressure was beginning to drop. So they asked him, is there anything that we can do for you? Because it doesn't look like that you're going to make it. The man said, yes, I would like to be able to tell my wife one more time that I love her. So they arranged to make a radio call to his wife. And he was able to speak to her one last time. After the phone call was finished, they said, all right, we're going to release this arm from you. And the doctor told him, I don't think I'm going to be able to stop the bleeding. And this may be the end. So he said he was ready. They released the arm. And as the doctor said, the man died on the spot. The place where he died was Missile Silo Kilo 11. All right. As I said, these missile silos can take a direct hit from a nuclear missile. They have a 10-ton concrete door on top of the missile. On the outside of the missile, there's nothing but a fence. They don't worry about people getting inside, so all you need is a fence. But there are alarms. There are alarms on top of the ground and below the ground. After this incident happened, almost every night, the alarm underneath the 10-ton door inside the missile, where it was impossible for anyone to go, would go off almost every single night. And the men would have to respond and go out there and check outside the fence all around, and then they would have to open the hole and go down where the missile was.
So who was still there?
So they say.
Well, I really appreciate the story. Thank you. I've heard similar stories. There was Law and Order, which was one of the series of which ran in a similar fashion, was squeezed by a subway train. And actually the train stopped, and it hit him about midline, in other words, right across the stomach. And as long as that subway was in place, which is the man just talked about the alarms missile, the blood flow, the blood pressure in that part of the body stayed roughly what kept him alive. At the very moment, of course, they moved the train or changed anything, blood pressure immediately dropped and the man passed away. So what that man just had to say about Kilo 11 was entirely possible. What followed was that around the world on a monthly basis is, well, it's why we're here talking about this. Many times, spirits appear, and this is a part of life after death, or life after all. Because I think it makes us all a little nervous. It sometimes appears as though a spirit, or a spirit, will remains continually setting off alarms, or people getting a glimpse of the same thing again and again and again, like a terrible tape of something that wasn't finished. Ron Cardone, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hi, how are you? It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Good to have you, sir, but you're also on a cell phone.
Yeah, I hope the story is not too bad for you. We'll clear up.
Not so good at the moment, but we're going to try.
Okay, my name is Herbert. I'm a truck driver.
Also,
I was in the military stationed on in Fort Florida. There's on base housing. And we had a baby goat. The wife started hearing it, and at different times it would cry. And when I started hearing it, I'm sure you're familiar with police pajamas.
pajamas?
Yeah, we call those police pajamas. They've got their face.
Oh, sure, okay.
Just up the middle. And I had small boys, and sometimes at night I would hear the police pajamas coming into my room. And like that, my head going, I think it was one of my sons. And I reached out, and he didn't want to be there. And I looked at on him and took me down to sleep. So it was kind of funny at times and kind of weird. And then one night I had the police pajamas coming in bed, and all my hair is hanging on me right now. And I felt put the bed go down. So I knew it was one of my sons climbing his bedroom. And I raised up because moonlight was coming through the window and there wasn't nothing there whatsoever. And I couldn't scream. I couldn't holler. I was just terrified. And my wife, because of her life, was good. Anytime you touch her, she wakes up to see what's up or what I need. I started shaking her arm. I almost knocked her out of bed. And just as the blue, something come over me. I don't know what whipped it over me, but I lost all motion, all feeling. I wasn't scared. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't nothing. And something without the feeling of touch just made me lay back down and just hit myself. I was out.
I'm paralyzed.
No, I mean, at one point, when the feeling came over me, you know, I didn't have no emotion. It was tough to describe. It was almost like a void. I had no feelings whatsoever.
Okay, so this was not sleep paralysis.
Oh, no, I was wide awake because I was wide awake running some things in my head because I was going up for advanced exam the next day.
Yes.
And I was wide awake and I was running over these figures in my head so I could do good on my advanced test the next day. So I wasn't even asleep when it happened. But
We're coming up on a break here. So I appreciate your call, and we'll continue with those stories. I've got a number of them sent here today. I'll pepper the program with those, but otherwise, we're depending on all of you non-cell phone people that call. Ghosts to ghosts, actually, on-screen calls, which is taking them up as we get them tonight, but let's move. One story per color. Please, folks, don't use cell phones. The last caller was an example of why I'm making that request. First of all, you gotta be able to understand it, right? And please, only in, if you will, the scariest stories. That if it didn't scare you, it probably wouldn't scare us. Those are the numbers. We would love to hear from you, and we will continue. This is not going to be the scariest story on tonight, but I guarantee every word of it is true. I'm a retired police officer. I've never had a supernatural encounter. UFO. The following story is the closest I've come to a truly strange experience. Around 1990, at nighttime, a robber held up a small Asian bar, which was tucked into a mostly industrial area of the city. So a patrol officer happened quickly upon the scene, confronted the robber who was walking on the street in a nearby alley. The robber turned, smiled, and quickly crouched and reached for his gun in his waistband. In a classic one-on-one Western-style shootout I've seen on TV, but really actually experienced by most police officers, the solo patrolman took his tool, killed the robber on the spot. I was working that night, was on scene along with several other officers within minutes of the shooting. I eventually left to handle other calls, but a short while thereafter I was dispatched to the hospital. When the robber's body was taken to do a follow-up report and secure evidence. I was in the hospital room where the robber was lying dead, shirtless upon a bed. His arms lay flat upon the bed, palms up alongside his legs. The hospital attendant in the room with me, she tells me bags, which I was going to bag the dead suspect's hands for later GSR tests. Sounds for gunshots, I suppose. Help determine that he had in fact fired a weapon. As I opened the first bag and leaned over him to bag his right hand, the dead man's arm lifted straight up in the air at a perfect 90-degree angle with his elbows still on the bed, and his right hand now pointed toward the ceiling. Yet somebody and I both gasped and stared at each other, and the attendant said something that you can't say out coast to coast. And that's it, Art. I won't embellish anything. Nothing further happened, of course. It was a dead man's spasm, right? It was only dead man's spasm, as far as I ever saw. And the time of it is that I was literally about to reach for the thing, and it was truly very, even for a police officer, I figured he was either trying to cooperate in the end, or else he was going for one last desperate grab for his slug. And he goes on to give me the names of those all the things how we play things really fabulous. So often you're on the air, you want this is coast to coast. Yes, it is. Coast to coast.
Well, there we go. Yeah. I've got a cat story, cat story about a cat that passed away. Basically said goodbye with the motion sensor light off the porch. You know, on the porch. And I was inside. And it was crazy because it freaked me out in the beginning. The motion sensor was going off and there was no one around. But oh no, this wasn't that sensitive. Like maybe a person walking by or a car. But I think this was a way of the cat saying goodbye. I'm okay because it had been hit by a car the day before. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it could be. Various things appear to us, and I'm not sure if our brains
It helps us to make the connection that people want to be able to say goodbye. They want to be able to say hello to you. Sort of one last thing. And so sometimes our brain makes that connection. Sometimes perhaps there's a little more to it. Yes, with that, Mr. Rogers, you're on the line. There, good morning.
Good morning. Hi. My name is Candy and I'm calling from Sacramento. Well, my story is a pretty scary one. I haven't told many people this throughout my lifetime. I'm 36 now. And I remember the weather was hot. So it must have been around June or August in the summer months from school. And I was in the 6th grade. And the family was on vacation and at home. I didn't go with them wherever they went to. I can't remember that now. But Grandpa stayed with me, and he was in the living room, and I was coloring up at the dining room table. And I had one of these old organs in my room. And down the hallway, I could hear this music coming from the organ, and I knew I didn't leave it on. And it didn't play by itself. And it was beautiful yet eerie. And I kept coloring, and I thought, well, it's going to end anytime soon, but it kept going. And I got more curious about it. So when I went down the hallway, there was this chill in the air. And Grandpa had told me a couple of months previously that if I were to experience anything scary, just to call on the name of Jesus, and everything would be all right. And I was getting scared by the moment I kept walking up the hallway to my room. And I called on the name of Jesus, but it didn't go away. I got so close to the doorway that the music was blasting my ears. And what happened was I didn't know what to do, and I didn't want to go back and get Grandpa because I thought I could handle this by myself. And I've been listening since 1998 to you and George Norrie. And this is the first time that I've ever been able to get down to the radio to tell my experience. No, when I turned into the doorway real fast, like, there was this thing that I can't describe to anybody, but I've drawn pictures of it to
You're able to do the times. I guess you assume it was the same thing, would you?
No, it was unearthly. I have no formal description of how to put into words what it looked like, but it was red, and it was glowing, and it must have been a demon that I saw. Yes, and he was using its hand-like fingers on my organ player. And it looked straight at me with yellow eyes. And yeah, it was the most unbelievable, undescribable being. And I'm shaking right now, but it challenged me at the age of 6 years old. So I said, in the name of Jesus Christ, be gone, I command you. And lifted its head up like it had never been told this before and just vanished.
All right, well, that's a story. That's a story. It wasn't so original. It's actually a little bit. I really appreciate your call.
Well, thank you for taking my call.
Listen, I don't think of the website you might want to see. I'm pretty picky when it comes to social posts progressive. I don't want to go from just any, but this was actually Bill Roberts. Arrived about a week and a half ago or so. It's obviously taken place in the hospital in Colorado. And it was just a nurse testing his account when he took his breath if he knew too much. Across the room, and yet if you look in the mirror, you will clearly see somebody dressed in what appears to be perhaps a uniform. So half there and half gone. It looks like an old uniform to me. It's like one of those things has been around for some time. This has to be one of the best photographs I think I've ever seen. So, I might go take a look at that again from Colorado ICU. And Robert, I want to thank you for sending it along. It's really a good one. I can usually pick apart those photographs and say, well, it's this or it's that, but you look carefully at the mirror, the objects, the picture, and all the rest of it. There's nothing at all bogus about this one. Along my line, you were home there, really.
Yes, this is B for B.
What's me?
I gotta go upstairs for you. Well, you need to judge. When I was a kid, a freshman in high school, and you had to run around with other kids on Friday and Saturday night dragging the man stuff, one of the guys, the older guy said, you know, if you guys down to the cemetery, he said, at the end of the thing, he says, we was out there a couple of weeks ago with our girlfriend, because sometimes he's like there and they find a place they park and make out with her girlfriend. He says, we got out and he said, we went up there and he said, there was this one girl that had this enormous upright headstone that was taller than we were. And the girl said, oh, he said, I didn't know we were going to buy this one. She said, go back to the car. He said, well, why? Because it's hard. He said, what do you mean? She said, if you say it, there's no handbrake there. She said, if you walk up and you stand at the foot at Toby on the strip of midnight and say, hey, old man, what are you doing there? He'll answer you back and he'll say, nothing at all. Anyway, we said to our thing, no, we never heard about it. So he drove us out there. There were four of us. We were just kind of and we walked up stuff in midnight. So like you said, you sure as heck, the old man had to say, he said, nothing at all. And he was like, don't you get it, Art?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Art.
What's going on? Trying to get back. I don't think anybody, any one of us, wants to we just sort of hang around in a place where our body is returning to the earth slowly, year by year. And the same thing over and over again. Longford Line, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes, hi, this is Bill from Southern California. Yeah, I got a good story for you. Yeah, it deals with Native American burial. You still there? Okay. Well, I'm an archaeologist. I don't have a PhD, but I do have a master's. And I was working on a survey crew, and we found an area that had a lot of broken pottery and whatnot. And we flagged it, and we went on, came back to it a couple days later, started excavating, and the equipment failure, like you would not believe. The laptops would go dead. You come out of an area, they come back on. They go back in, they go back off. Generally, the same way. The lights and stuff. It was just a crazy deal.
Well, if something was taking all the energy, at least temporarily, from whatever you were having.
Yes, there was. And our group base camp that we had set up, we had cooked and everything. The first night there, our equipment, personal equipment we found in trees and scattered all over the place, so we thought it might have been animals or something. Second night, the cook, he came out the next morning, he was mad because everything, well, around the camp cook area was just scattered all over the place. When we started excavating, we started finding human remains. Well, that brought the Native American in to monitor this area. And this was going on for like a month or a week. Finally, we got a hold of one of the elders, and
Usually, elders or anybody else are prohibited from digging all the areas of that kind.
it depends on what you're going to do. If they're going to put a freeway through, or if they're digging like a pipeline, you know, they got to remove the remains, or they try to reroute it. That kind of thing. Well, where we were at, it was going like through the center of the valley, they couldn't reroute the area. Or fiber optic.
Okay, so how did it resolve?
Again?
How did it end?
Oh, how did it end? Well, the owner got a hold of Spirit Foot, not a shaman, but a Spirit Foot. And he told us if we wanted to come and go into a sweat lodge, we could sweat out and do some incantations that he had done. And then once we done that, he gave us each a piece of ribbon or colored cloth. And he told us to carry one piece with us and tie one piece onto our tent. Those that went, nothing happened. Those that didn't, everything happened over again.
Those things going on about it. Once again, I don't think I would go to any such an area. Usually, as I mentioned, once you begin swimming, Native American facts, they start you digging almost immediately. They're very good places. Person I'm going to line or
Good morning. I just wanted to fill you in on the story that I was looking up the experience myself. My name is Chris. I live in Virginia. When I was a child, I was staying over at my aunt's house who had a furnished basement. It was the middle of the night, about 2 in the morning. I hadn't slept in, and I made sure to double check to make sure I hadn't slept in this situation. Anyway, while I was sitting there attempting to go to sleep, a lady appeared. You have to understand the area that I was at also used to be a battlefield in the Civil War. So this lady appeared in a beautiful gown, and a gentleman came up to her with his full body apparition, by the way.
I was going to ask, completely visible.
Almost solid. Almost solid. Yeah, and they were very close to it. And he was wearing a blue uniform, so obviously I think they had an idea of what side he was on. Yes. And they embraced, and they were having having a romantic interlude out his college. Wow. All of a sudden, a gentleman in gray appeared in a tattered gray uniform, with bayonet in hand. He ran up on the gentleman in blue and started sticking him. Ran over, repeatedly cutting the gentleman with the bayonet. And when I say cutting, I mean in terms of hanging off the end of the bayonet, kind of go. It was quite nasty. And then after some moments back sticking him, and she, when he turned freaking out, understandably, vanished.
So it's like it's kind of like you had a north-south battle of Memphis right in front of you on all apparently, I guess you would guess, over a woman.
That's what happens. That's what happens. The gentleman in blue definitely dead. No question about that.
Was all this just visual, or did you hear things as well?
You can hear a little bits and pieces, but not very loud. And you can hear, her crying kind of doing, her trying to stop. You can hear the crying and then you can hear the sticks occasionally.
And so once all this was over, they all just faded away, huh?
There wasn't a refrigerator with a poof gone.
Gone, all right. Well, proof gone is what we have to do right now. This is Coast to Coast AM. One correction. That episode was not Law and Order. The one in which the man was crushed by the train was Homicide: Life on the Street. So that was a few years yet earlier, but it was still an incredible episode. I wonder how many of you remember that. This is Coast to Coast AM. Now, listen, everybody, on-screen calls. We're not screening the calls at all, so it's up to you. They've got to be good stories. The show will only be as good as your stories. One story per customer. Please, got to use anything but a cell phone. And I still have yet to touch your cell phone, so please, if you can, get to a corded phone. Only the scariest stories might apply. We'll be right back. The following is from Bill in Rockford, Illinois. There's a house here in north central Illinois, known to the locals simply as the Plainfield Place. The house's eerie legacy began back around the turn of the century when a kitchen fire took the lives of two small children and a servant. Next, an undertaker took up residence, whose wife fell headlong down the gloomy staircase there, breaking her back and her neck, killing her instantly. The funeral director's body was discovered a few months later in his own backyard, swaying from the branches of a maple tree where he had hanged himself in despair. Then, the real tragedy commenced. A newlywed couple by the name of Penfield bought the place, moved in, and one night, not long after, the young bride, Mara Penfield, went missing. The jealous husband was always suspected in her disappearance, but nothing ever came of it, not until a decade later, in the 1940s. The 17-year-old Mara Penfield was finally found again. Her sad remains were unearthed as the workroom and backyard of her former home, buried beneath an infamous maple. He was stabbed, rolled up inside an oriental carpet, appendages dismembered, and removed to only God and the killer knows where. The missing limbs were never found. After that, the house went really bad. Future tenants would experience a frightening presence there, one which loomed over them as they slept and circled the bed, sometimes even touching their extremities inquisitively. The soft voice could be heard whispering, "Am I dead? Am I dead?" And once an abomination was witnessed by a group of New Year's Eve revelers, a hideous shape crawling across the second-floor stair landing in the darkness as if searching blind for something. When somebody went out of scream, the form raised up suddenly and glided away, nightmarish and black, with no face to speak of. The large swelling eventually fell victim to neglect and was converted into a tomb throne boarding. But I can distinctly remember once in the 1970s when a young expectant mother living there broke out in a high fever one night and miscarried inside that same shuttered house, giving birth afterwards to a stillborn boy at a nearby hospital. A stillborn baby boy, extremely misshapen and underdeveloped, no legs, no arms, rambling old Penfield Place still stands today. Occasionally in rooms belonging to all our very worst fears. That's what it is. Question on the line, you're on the air. Hello? Listen, we'll turn the radio off, please.
Hello? Is this on?
It is.
Hi, this is Judy from Huntsville, Alabama.
Hi, Judy.
I just wanted to tell you a story about a doll.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, my mother and dad bought me a doll. The last one they ever bought me was the size of a 3-year-old child. One night, many years later, I had the doll and standing up in the corner of the bedroom. I was reading a book, and all of a sudden, out of my peripheral vision, I saw something move. And it startled me, of course, and I looked up, and I looked toward the doll, and the doll raised its arm, put it down.
Now, in modern day, let me just stop you for a moment. I've seen the ads for them. Now, today they sell dolls that are, like a 3-year-old size, a 2 or 3-year-old size, and infant size.
Right.
So they build and they do see things. They memorize the name of them.
Right, but I'm 58 years old.
I hear you. So there was no name memorized, or there was no movement. This was just a doll.
Just a plain doll, the size of a 3-year-old child.
And you saw her raise her arm.
She raised it up, she put it down. It, of course, terrified me. I broke out in cold sweats. And the only thing I knew to do was to go and pick the thing up and take it and put it in the bin. And I did that. Well, the next day I told my family about it. And, of course, some believed me, some didn't. My mother said, well, I don't want you to do away with the doll because that's the last one we bought you. It's sort of sentimental. She took it over to her apartment. She said, I'll keep it. Okay. Things started happening at her apartment. She woke up one night out of a deep sleep and she said, standing beside her bed was a dark figure. And the only way she could describe this, it was during Star Wars, it looked like Darth Vader, but, to me, it was like a demon. No, it wasn't the doll. It was a dark figure standing beside her bed. I think it did. And also, she had a plant on a plant stand. And I've seen this in other stories before about possession and different things like this. The plant was shaped by itself. And my mother was a very smart woman. She wasn't given to delusions or anything like that. And she started telling me all this stuff. And I said, well, I think we need to get rid of this doll. I don't know what's wrong with it, but I think I'm going to try to get in touch with Ed and Lorraine Warren and try to, see if there's something wrong with this doll. Well, I got married. My husband put the doll out in the trash. And they picked it up. So I have no idea where the doll is now, but I hope no little child has the doll.
It's probably out just walking around with trash yards.
I don't know, but this is serious. I mean, I'm a nurse. I'm not a person given to delusions or hallucination or anything like that. I don't like dolls.
That's why thank you very much. Because those things really do happen. I've had, and I won't go into details, but I've had a few crushed things like dolls, symphony, and some pretty strange stuff happened. People come into possession of something like what she was just talking about, that doll, and they don't know what to do with it. And so they end up saying in the old days, when I was saying 5 days, 6 days a week show, they'd send me money, and they would tell me this, whatever it is, I don't know what it was, this curse. Well, mistakenly, I did keep something for a few days, and what a mistake that was. Good morning, what's the Rockies? You're on the air.
Well, I'm calling about a man under a table in New York.
Radio off for me, sir.
Yeah, I'm calling about a ghost in Bishop, California, under a bed, under a table.
Under a table or a bed?
A table. I was sleeping in my uncle's sister's house in Bishop, California. We were on vacation, and I was sleeping in the living room, facing the kitchen. And when I woke up at 3 in the morning, there's voices calling me from the kitchen. I woke up, and everyone was asleep around the living room, and I could see the kitchen. I looked in the kitchen, I could see somebody under the table calling me with his hand. I could see his dark figure calling me.
It actually audibly or sort of beckoning on the phone.
A guy under the table calling me, like, come here, like, come to the dark side. I'm like, fuck that. I mean.
Okay, well, okay. Unfortunately, you just used language that I can't tell on the air, so I have to go into that. That's what happened, folks. I understand that people get very emotional when we're telling a story. There are certain words, the Deadly Seven, I think, that have been articulated that you can't use on the air, and so we have a special little thing to eliminate that. That's what just happened. We went to a part of the story where he indicated emotionally with the word we couldn't use that he was not about to follow the suggestion of that gross. One point line, you're on the air. Good morning. Hello?
Los Angeles?
Yes, Los Angeles.
Hi, how are you? Happy Halloween.
I'm just on.
Okay, this is my.
Okay, turn the radio off first here.
Oh, I'm trying.
It will be very confusing for you otherwise, because we're putting you directly on the air, so. And what is your first name?
Rebecca?
Rebecca.
Hi, okay. This happened many, many years ago, and but a friend of mine and I were using a Ouija board, and I think we were not using Ouija board, because before I knew better. And we were talking to, various spirits, and we eventually got an evil spirit that came on. So we decided, okay, let's get rid of the evil spirit, and the rest for the night. And it kind of freaked us out a little bit. And the evil spirit was basically saying how she wanted to kill my friend, and she was going to get my friend, and all this kind of stuff. So before I left, my cousin's apartment, where we were doing the Ouija board, I told her, well, I don't know much about this stuff, but I'll try and help you the way I can, because, prevent you from getting killed. So, I looked up for him to go home. It was around 2 in the morning at that time. And I'd taken maybe about 10 steps out of my apartment. And, it was 6 o'clock, no one was up, completely quiet. And all of a sudden, I heard something. It was like someone was right next to me and screamed in my ear. And what it said was, don't help her, jerk. So, of course, that totally freaked me out. So I ran back to my apartment. I'm like, oh, what is this? So she calmed me down a little bit. We kind of talked about it. And what she said was that she was going to send her guardian angel home with me to kind of protect me, because now she thought the street might be after me. So I kind of poo-pooed it. Was like, yeah, right, her guardian angel. But, I figured, why not? Because I didn't really know too much about it. Didn't know if I believed it or not. Anyway, so I eventually go back up to my car, I start to drive home, and I'm driving along on the freeway. Then all of a sudden, as I'm driving along, bam, right in the passenger seat of my car, this man appeared. Like fully formed, completely solid, not like ghostly, wearing jeans or a shirt. He basically turned towards me, smiled, waved, and then disappeared. And I was like, wow, they're getting a little bit for me,
Well, maybe. I mean, these are reasons why you don't screw around with Ouija boards. Because what happens is you open doors that you can immediately forwards. And so I took it down, somebody presented me with a Ouija board, said, let's have some fun. And go the other way.
Yeah, exactly. Because I didn't have to read the board 2 times after that, but every time I did, I noticed I forget bad, that's just what started happening, and I finally connected it. So I got rid of my Ouija board and kind of well, I kind of really just my beautiful one, but for a while.
Thank you. It's true widely known that years ago I was busy using a Ouija board. I won't tell the story. It scared me so badly. I've heard scared me so badly. Maybe you didn't tell the story. Don't screw around with a Ouija board. Not really as a lesson that you ought not to learn the hard way. Mr. Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
In 1958, I was 10 years old. It was a family tradition that we would meet at my grandmother's house on Easter Sunday. My mother was gone up on Friday, and my father was an Atlanta City policeman, big man. Never saw him afraid of anything in his life. He picked me up, and we headed for a small town in Tennessee. On the way up, all my life, and my brothers and sisters, we passed this house that had an iron gate, and we called it the haunted house. My dad's, I stopped. I said, Dad, can we stop and look? And we didn't have anything to do, and he wasn't too eager to get to my grandparents' house too early. So we got out and went in. Dad walked up on the front porch, and I started up the flight of stairs inside. And, you know, like a kid with a little bravado, I ran right to the top of the steps. As soon as I got to the top of the steps, there was about a 3-year-old girl standing looking at me. A little blonde-haired girl, nothing extraordinary about her. And I said, Dad, there's a girl up here. My dad thought maybe some squatters were in the house. And he ran up the steps behind me. And as soon as the little girl saw my dad, she just went straight across the hall into her bedroom and slammed the door. My dad walked up to the bedroom door. My dad was a big man. He was not afraid of anything. He pushed the door. The door pushed him back so hard he almost fell down. That made my dad mad. He got up and gave the door the boot. The door flew off the hinge and we went in the room. It was about an 11 by 11 bedroom, 2 windows going outside, and my dad went over to them and couldn't open either one. There was a closet in the room. My dad opened the closet, and the closet was just 4 walls, wood panels solid. My dad knocked on everything in the room. He knocked all over the floor, and we found nothing. So my dad and I went back outside, and my mother was related to the sheriff in a small town right where we were. And my dad went down there. He thought that people were squatting there, and we also warned him that the little girl might be in some kind of trouble. My dad told the officer there what had just taken place. And the officer went into the chief's office, and the chief was related to my mother. And the chief came out and called my dad and I into another office. And he opened the file cabinet, and he pulled out a file. And the file was a newspaper article. My house had belonged to a doctor that the copper company had brought in there to treat their commanders. The doctor was in Atlanta. The doctor's wife and them had a boyfriend. And the doctor came back to his home. His maid told him that his wife wasn't there, that she was downtown. When he went downtown, he shot the leper, he shot the mother, went back to the house, and shot the little girl, and shot himself.
Oh my God. And so that little girl, her spirit, or what was left of her remains in that house.
It's not even what I'm noticed to say that people heard the little girl. He shot the maid also, but the little girl was the last alive, and she went running up the steps screaming, and they were gunshot.
Wow. I really appreciate your story, Sir Andy. I don't know. Again, what this tells us about life after death. Many of those stories are associated with home deaths. Many of those stories are associated with suicides. In other words, some sort of very traumatic, unfulfilled, unrequited love. All of these things seem to bring about a continued presence. Now, whether this is a contemporary awareness, or it's just some sort of echo of what was, it's hard to say. Either way, it's looking at freaky. Ron Carvine, you're on the air.
Oh, yes, Coast to Coast?
Yes, Coast to Coast. Stream radio off, please.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Captain Palmer. I'm sorry for the last name. I'm Kevin in Iroquois Falls, Ontario.
Yes.
And I have to say, the first time I listened to Coast AM, I got it to the end, and I was listening to older episodes, and I invoked a demon when I was first listening to Coast AM.
Why was
Well, I got into Coast to Coast AM after some of my friends on Pal Talk, and they sent me a link for some of the shows, and I invoked a demon when I was listening to Pal Talk. And his name is JC.
That's not exactly a ghost story, although there's a little bit of terror certainly involved in it. JC. Here's Ghost to Coast AM. We'll be right back. Fascinating. How many stories I get from police officers, nurses, and doctors, but they don't ever want to be named, rarely. I protect them anyway. Matt from Plainfield, Illinois, says, this is just a fast flash. I used to be a narcotics detective. One night I was called to the scene of a drug murder. When I arrived, I saw a man standing over the dead body, telling him to get up. Long story short, it was a dead man yelling at his own horse. We'll be right back. And even though what we're doing tonight are ghost stories, this is really all about whether there is some kind of existence after physical death. Nobody says, not that theory, but this is the reason I believe our spirits go on after we leave our physical bodies. In 2000, my ex-wife and I were expecting a new son. I was on the Navy at the time. We lived in San Diego. I was on a 6-week exercise in Hawaii. And I got a sudden Red Cross message that I needed to get home. My ex-wife had to have emergency surgery. There was a very good chance she'd lose the baby at 5 months. I was going to get emergency leave and plane ticket, made it to the hospital 21 hours later, just before she went in. The surgery went fine, though there were a few twitching moments, and we went home a few days later. Over the next couple of months, my ex began talking in her sleep. The conversations always sounded friendly, though I could never make out quite what was said. She'd never talked in her sleep before and didn't say anything about having strange dreams, so I went for a walk and she was put on bed rest. And we were at the doctor's office about twice a week. I was worried, prayed every night for my son to be healthy. My ex went into labor, and it was a problem, and then another problem, and a problem after that. There were issues with pain medication they put her on, problems with monitoring equipment, you name it, it happened. When my son was born, he didn't have a heartbeat, wasn't breathing, and was a light blue color. I think every doctor in the hospital at night was in the room. And I can't say enough good things about them. They placed my son on a cart and ran out of the room. There were people taking care of my ex, trying to make sure she was going to make it, so I went to find my son. I was not familiar with the area, that area of the hospital, and there wasn't anybody around to ask because everybody was trying to either care for my ex or my son. I heard someone call my name on the right side, so assuming it was a doctor, I went towards the sound. And I never really saw my name from down the hall. I'm running down the hall, and right here was my head. I really can't describe it. I looked, and there was my son being worked on. I walked into the room. The doctor looked at me. He had this look on his face, and I just know it wasn't good. The nurses just looked at me. I began to cry because I knew my son was dead. Now, this is where it all gets a little strange. I noticed some movement out of the corner of my eye. It was very fast, so I looked in that direction. There wasn't anything there. I looked over where the little baby was. I was going to touch him, my hand an inch over his chest. The doctors were doing whatever they were doing a little away from me. They'd totally given up. And out of the blue, my son starts slightly moving and lets out this huge, strong cry. Of course, I jumped a little. I lost my balance and began to fall backward. I turned a little, trying to right myself and see the way of both of my grandmothers were there in the reflection, smiling, and it looked as if they were staring at the table, smiling at my little boy. After that, I did have a few medical problems, a couple of surgeries to fix a few things. Now, I'm a 37-year-old. The only thing about him is, it's strange, he talks from time to time about angels that he sees at night. He says that sometimes they're unclean, sometimes they're mommy's age, but he says they always look kind of the same. I did find a picture of one of my grandmothers a couple of years ago, and he pointed to it right away and said, Granny. So I'm sure they came to help. That's our story. Happy Halloween. Mr. Rockies, you are on the air. Good morning.
Art,
Yes.
this is Wayne from Pennsylvania. And my dad, he had 16 brothers and 5 sisters, and he was the 77th son. And one time, he bought me a box of Cracker Jack with a toy in it. Then I took it upstairs and put my door. And so I was down, I played outside a little bit. I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I just had to go up and get it. And And then the door was locked. The window locked on the door. It was like, I couldn't push it open. So I looked at the door and I could see these feet like dog feet. And I was pushing all the time. It opened. I seen one out the window, and my foot was gone. And
So something like dog had taken your drawing, not like on the road?
all I see is just two dog feet, like, I didn't see the rest of the body.
But they were like dog feet.
Yeah, and my toilet was gone. It went out the window quick. Then, when Rudy got me, and when I was about 14, and my mom, my dad was separated, and all of a sudden, about 2 o'clock in the morning, it's like a big explosion in my head, and I got up, ran out the kitchen, and my mom said, what's wrong? What's wrong? I said, something wrong with Dad. Because he works, distance away. And she said, I can't be. And I said, Mom, there's something's going on because I have a feeling something's wrong. And then about an hour later, she got a phone call. He got hit by a truck and killed her.
Oh, I'm so sorry. There are so many stories like that. For some reason, people, they seem to know when something awful has happened to a relative. I have no idea how that happens or why that happens, but it does. That communication takes place. A relative somewhere has died, and as on both sides, it's like an explosion in your head. You just don't know. And you've got to ask yourself, what mechanism transmits that message? It's really as mysterious as other things that you cannot explain. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi. I have a story about EVP for you.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Niagara Falls, Canada, and my name is Cindy. Hi. We were, my boyfriend, myself, and a friend decided to go hunting, and we brought our digital recorders with us, and we were out in the Great Bear down in Niagara on the Lake. I'm not sure if you're aware, if you know where that area is or not. Okay, we were down in one of the Great Bears down there. And so we were there for about an hour, and we were just about to leave, and my boyfriend goes, well, why don't you try just ask a couple more questions before we leave. So anyways, we asked a couple more questions, and then my friend, for some reason, goes, oh, I wonder if somebody's going to come home with us. And I'm like, that's not even funny. Don't even joke about that, right? And we get into the car, and I'm like, well, let's listen to what we've got, right? See if we have anything. So we're driving back. We get to the part on the tape, or not even the tape because it was digital, but we get to that part where she says that, and clearly saying here on it, go home. And we don't know who it was. It wasn't like any of us saying it, but it's clear saying you can hear somebody say go home.
And I assume you kept home.
Yeah.
Because movies work. Now, what the hell happened? Of course, we don't know. We never wonder. That's why I continue to help people who just on the air. Because they're real. And if you doubt it, get a recorder. If you drop the phones for it, take it to a graveyard or somewhere else where the movie spirits bound. Do a few hours of recording. Come home. And send to me an email or let me know what was said. What the matter is, EVP works. What it really is, get me open. But it's not a joke, and those who take the time and trouble will go out and try it. Inevitably get something really not expression. First time on the line, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. This is Venture, Wyoming. I got a ghost story for you.
Yes, well, maybe SUV since you're on the cell phone.
Okay, well, going across Pennsylvania one time, back in the 70s, truck got awful cold inside. Look over in the passenger seat, there's like an entity sitting there.
Oh, this is good.
Oh,
When you say an entity, describe if you can what you saw.
very, very light shade of white.
Okay.
And that was it.
In form of a human being or what?
No, I can't say it was in the form of a human being. It was just something in white was sitting over there in that passenger seat.
And you managed to stay on the road.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me. It's not at all.
Okay, I get you, but I don't understand that at all. Somehow manifested itself next to me on a truck or car seat. I would be awfully lucky to stay in the world. I don't know how I stand there. No idea at all. Western Rockies, you're on here.
My name's Tanya.
Hi, Tanya.
Hey, I just want to say that I've had several experiences in my life.
Well, we only have time for one, so give us your best.
Okay, let me think about it. Well, I just moved recently to Washington State, and two different incidents, a very similar kind of event. I was laying in bed, and I saw a thing walking towards me, and I was like, what? I looked up, nothing was there. Laid back down, and then I felt something close to me again. I was trying to ignore it, and nobody was going to move for me. And I felt something like lean on me toward the kind of my chest, and something screamed into my right ear, just like scream. And then the separate incident was the same kind of thing. All the same kind of pressure on me, and I couldn't scream my right ear the second time, but it was like, save me, the scream was, save me.
And what you do?
Oh, straight enough, I wasn't really that scared, because I've had other experiences before, but, I tried to go back to bed. Well, first, when I actually jumped out of bed, and I started get in the shower and wake up. The second one, I just was actually while I was right on sleep, and I just was like, okay, I'm going to ignore this, to cover over my head, and go back to bed. But it's really weird. I didn't know.
Save me have obvious needs, so did you feel compelled to get up and escape trying to help somebody?
Well, I mean, honestly, the one I heard something yell, save me, it was like really cold in my right ear, and I felt like it was something bleeding on your chest. Originally thought my boyfriend was sitting right next to me, and I thought, well, maybe it was like his psychic energy, or something, his psychic energy was like telling me something, I don't know, but a tree fell down behind her house, maybe around that time, and he said maybe the tree was trying to say, save me, I don't know, but I was like, I had to go to work and I was like, okay, I'm like kind of scared, so I'm gonna like try to like sort of sleep, but it freaked me out. I mean, the first one happened, I jumped out of bed and I thought this, whatever it is, trying to tell me it's trying to get me out of bed. It's like, don't sleep anymore. Really, you better get out of bed and start the day.
Okay, well, that would happen to me, I'm sure it would work. Down for the rest of the work. Whether or not I would have gotten around to wake up and tried to help somebody. Mr. Rockies, you're on here.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
Mike from Indianapolis.
Hi, Mike.
And I'm just calling. I have a story when I lived in Kentucky in 1993. And very interesting. It involves some pretty famous landmarks there in Kentucky. To begin with, I was a teenager, a senior in high school, and I had missed my bus for school. And seeing as I really had to graduate, I didn't want to get get in trouble from my father. I decided I better get to school as fast as I can.
So there's usually a reason to stay home to miss the bus, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway.
And it seemed to be around this time, actually, probably beginning of November. And there's a place there called Valley Station, Kentucky. And I was going to school, and I kind of ran a lot when I was younger, and so I was kind of jogging, and I was new to the area at the time. I just moved there. And what happened was I decided to take a shortcut. And from this experience, it was ill-advised. And I took the shortcut to get to school, on time, a little bit earlier to not get in trouble. And so I'm jogging up this hill, and I pass this golf course, and I get to the end of the top of this hill, and it is a place called Waverly Hill Sanatorium. And of course, everybody's heard of it now. But at the time, I had no idea, of the actual experiences there. But, I was jogging, I had my headphones on, and decided, at the time that place was abandoned in around 1993. And so I'm jogging through this place because the gate is usually, it's left open. And so I'm jogging through, and I get
and I'm heading west towards what's known as Dixie Highway. And I get to the top of the hill, and I pass the actual hospital, and I'm listening to my headphones, and my music's blaring, and I head past the hospital and get to the behind of it, to the west side of it. To the right of me was a strange shed, and to the left of me was another kind of strange angle down. Shed looking thing. I'm not sure. To this day, I've never been there other than this time. So what happened? So actually, what happened was I had to stop and take a break. And my I stopped and I decided to turn off my headphones. And when I did, there was these strange sounds of voices, and it seemed like hundreds of them all around me. At the time, I had no idea that this place was supposedly haunted. I'm, not very easily scared. So I had, I turned around and said, shut up. And right at that instant, there was no more voices, and all the voices shut up, all at once. And I said, it's kind of odd. And I looked to my right of me at this shed, and in the window is this black shadow-like figure that many people see with the red eyes. And it just seemed to look at me with an eerie look, and I got scared. And I started running down the other side of the hill to the back side of the hospital as fast as I could. I was running and running. I had a feeling, just things were around me. I got to the bottom of the hill toward these railroad tracks. And what seemed to appear out of nowhere was a man and his dog. And this dog came right up to me. It was a Rottweiler, a large Rottweiler. I was getting scared, and I told the man, hey, does your dog bite? And the man never answered. It was a man in a trench coat, a large man with a long beard. And I repeatedly said, hey, does your dog bite? Does your dog bite? He said, he never said anything until the dog comes up to me and just seems to barely nudge my pant leg. And he looks over at the man, and the man, said something, says, who are you? And I say my name, Mike, and I just got here from Chicago. I thought actually that I was walking through a marijuana field and a guy was eating meth. So, it happens a lot, in Kentucky. And so I'm thinking, I better keep it cool, I get the dog on me and so I say, hey, I'm just late for school. That's not true. So then, we gotta get to the end of it. Oh, okay, sorry. So I say, okay, I'm sorry. And, the guy, I say, I'm late for school. And the guy says, okay, leave and don't look back. And so I run off and I'm walking down the railroad tracks towards the Doss High School over there. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to look back, and one man is not going to look back. And as I look back, the man and the dog is gone. But in that field where I was standing was about over 100 apparitions, gray-looking figures. And all those voices. And they were just looking at me. And I ran to school, and for a long time, nobody believed me. Until recently, I found out that place was so famous. And I just wanted to let that story out. And I just wanted to let people know that it really is like what happens after you die. I'm really not sure, but I think that there probably is a heaven and hell because, I don't see why a book like the Bible would survive for so many years. And it's really funny, but there really is a heaven and hell where did most people come from? Well, maybe they just, like the stories go, maybe the stories are right and they are, excuse my French, damned or cursed. Just a wrap. Thanks very much for calling. So, in this case, hundreds of spirits, first in voice, and then almost in touch. Those 7, you're on a ride, all right. And just never know what's going to end. Remember, folks, we're doing unscreened ghost stories from you, from Master Capone,
Please try not to use a cell phone. Get to a ported phone if you can, and only for scariest stories. And it didn't scare you, which are unlikely to scare us. Back with more English. Remember, turn the radio off right away when I pick up. Here's a good story from an emergency room in Arizona. Art, I'm an X-ray technician, was working at an Arizona hospital back in the winter of 2006. On the days of June, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. graveyard shift, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On a Saturday morning, around 1 or 2 in the morning, the ER called to tell my partner that an ambulance was involved with a 50 to 60-year-old male patient that was non-responsive with a throaty pulse. We were to stand by and be ready to do a clinical chest X-ray, post-trachea intubation. When the time came, my partner went to do this portable X-ray, leaving me alone in the X-ray control room not more than 4 or 5 minutes after he left the older white male dressed in faded blue jeans and a stained white t-shirt came to the door of the control room. Now, this is what you have to chance because he needed an electronic card key to access the area from time of night. So I looked up from my paperwork, noticed this man, and asked, "Sir, can I help you?" He seemed to be looking for something or someone, but didn't answer. I asked again, "Sir, can I help you? Are you looking for someone? Are you lost?" This time, he raised his bright blue eyes in my direction and seemed to look right through me. The man said, "Oh, son, I think I found my way." He gave me a sad smile, shook his head, and moved from the doorway toward the direction of the ER. So I got up and went to the open door and looked down along the hallway to see anyone. I then checked the adjoining hallways, the 2 X-ray suites, even the file room, no trace of anybody. Being a little confused, I went back around the hall of the ER department to check on my co-worker's progress, shaking my head the whole way. When I finally got to the nurse's desk, I asked an RN friend if she'd seen the man I described. She gave me a funny look, said he was in trauma room 1, where my partner was supposed to be performing the emergency chest X-ray. I went to the trauma room door, walked in, just in time to see the physician declare the time of death on the man I saw in the X-ray control room not more than 15 minutes prior. Needless to say, I must have looked like one who was white as a ghost. Robbie from Phoenix, Arizona. Mr. Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Art. This is Beverly from Dayton, Ohio.
Hi, Beverly.
Yes, I would like to share one of my spooky moments.
Go right ahead.
Well, back in the mid-70s, when The Exorcist first came out, my husband and I bought a home, and it was in the country in a lovely setting, and the minute at the home, every evening when I was fixing supper, the basement door would open up. All by itself. And I thought, well, maybe it's just settling in the house, the change of season. But night after night, the door would open at around the same time. And then my son, he would say that there was something that was coming into his room and it was scary. Yeah, and of course you dismiss these types of activities because it's a new home. And then one evening, my husband and I were asleep, and we both had a vision or a dream at the same time. We saw our daughter being raised up out of her bed and slammed to the floor.
And both of you scream at the same moment.
At the same moment, and the whole house shook, and we flew out of bed and ran to her room. And there she was on the floor, but she was sound asleep and unharmed. And we knew then we had an entity in the home. Well, this way I didn't move out, but we got holy water, I threw away my book, The Exorcist.
I doubt that I've been able to home buckets for the water. I'm not sure why it was.
Well, one of the things that people with knowledge how to release demons or entities recommended cleansing each room with holy water. And then they said a lot of times there might be a new toy or something that you brought in the home because these entities like to hide in objects. There was one particular teddy bear that was fairly new. It was handmade. That was a gift to my daughter. And I never felt comfortable with the teddy bear. So my husband, when I had mentioned that to him, he instantly grabbed the teddy bear, threw it in the fireplace.
Teddy bears, dolls, it's something you like to try.
Really, and but the unusual thing, you would think by handmade stuff, teddy bears, it would be consumed in just a few minutes. It took hours for the teddy bear to still burn. And the fire would be in some eye to eye back and forth. Well, in 2 months I did leave. But the children and I, we vacated. We found another place to live.
I'll tell you, if I had if little wings went in and put our daughter on the floor, that would be it right there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the call.
Thank you so much.
Take care. That's a trouble one. Can you imagine not having a roof or a little rosy and it's fire, and so when they go in the other room and finding her, nothing to sleep on the floor. Come on. Well, Caroline, you're on the air. Good morning.
I was thinking I wasn't expecting tickets. You're the North got the doctor. Hey there. I got a good one for you.
Far away.
Okay. My family owned a funeral home, and I actually really didn't think of it as a ghost story until I thought about it, but I really didn't believe in ghosts. And about 3 years into my career, I've done plenty of removals, I've done plenty of hospitals, and plenty of morgues, and plenty of homes. But this one peculiar situation came up where we were actually contracted, hired to remove a man from a hospital who was being frozen, cryonic. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but
Sure.
And yeah, so I was on death watch that night. He was actually close to death for 3 days. And it's just a matter of waiting for him to take his last breath for the doctor to actually pronounce him, and then they give him the lethal shot of barbiturates and hook him up to a respirator, heart-lung respirator, which actually pounds on his chest. Well, we did that, and I'm not even thinking anything of it. I did the removal, I put him on the gurney, strapped him in the gurney, this machine pumping.
Stop you for a second. I don't quite understand the procedure. The doctor pronounces him dead.
Correct.
Okay, but then what's the shot?
Lethal injection of barbiturates.
Why would that be necessary?
Well, from my understanding, because the heart-lung machine is put on almost immediately after he's pronounced dead.
Okay.
And I asked the same question. I mean, I'm thinking the same thing, but I'm not really thinking this until about what I'm about to tell you actually happened. Anyways, I put him in the car. He's in the gurney. We're in the station wagon. The machine's pumping in the back, and I, turn on the radio. I'm just driving along. All of a sudden, in my mind, I hear like kind of a moan. I look in the rearview mirror, and I shake my head, and then again, I heard, "Where are we going?" And I look in the rearview mirror, and it was kind of like a ghostly image, but it was like I turn around and it's not there, but I see him actually stood up. And I turned around, I shook my head, I said, "No, this is my head." I turned the radio up. As I turned the radio up, it got louder. "Where are we going?" I pulled the car over, I put it in the park, and I turned the radio off. I said, "You've got to be kidding me." And no, I said it out loud. I said, "You have got to be kidding me." I said, I've been doing this for 3 years. And I said, I do one thing that is different. And can you hear me talking? He goes, yeah, where do we go? I said, well, we're going to the funeral home. He goes, no, we're not supposed to go to the funeral home. I said, well, where are we supposed to go? He goes, I'm supposed to just wake up and be well again. I said, wow. I said, this is wrong what we're doing. He goes, well, what have I done? And I explained it. So I actually, I'm sitting there in the car talking to him.
Having a full conversation with a dead man.
Well, you know, that's going through my head. I was like, well, is he dead? I'm sorry?
Having that conversation, I don't turn around or something. I mean,
I did. I turned around. Every time I would turn around,
I don't even know where to go. I would turn around and head back to the hospital. And you're having a conversation with somebody. Well, anyway, you go ahead, sir.
no, I knew it wasn't him in his physical body, though. Because he was near. I could see him sit up, and I can visually, kind of see him. But when I turned around, the machine just going. But the worst thing was I didn't feel fear. I thought, as I look back, I said, I should have been running out of the car screaming and yelling. But this guy, and I knew this guy was stuck because he realized, and I realized, I felt horrible because we got paid a lot of money just to put this machine on this guy and then bring him back to the funeral and pack him a night and put him in an ambulance and put him to nitrogen. And the thing is, I actually had to coerce him to go, because he was going to stay. He was going to stay in the funeral home. And my dad, I really haven't told the story to anybody. So my dad asked me, what's wrong with you? I said, what we did tonight was wrong. I said, it's for him. What he's expecting of this crown is not, I know for sure it's not going to work. Because if he's stuck, he was
obviously just had thought it's going to work.
Yes, he did. And he was going to stay. He's funeral home when the ambulance took up. I said, he can't stay there.
How did you finish up the conversation with him?
I'm sorry?
How did you finish up the conversation with him?
With telling him that he must go with his body in the ambulance and he needs to figure out his path. I mean, it was weird, but I told him that he couldn't, I've never dealt with anything like this before, he couldn't stay with me. It wasn't like he wanted to stay with me, he was stuck. It was like traumatic for him. It was like,
that's one of the others of your life.
But it was freaking. That was the last chronic situation we put ourselves into.
That's an amazing story. Just absolutely amazing. And how did you go through that? I never know.
It was strange because I didn't, in my mind and throughout my career, I had actually put out my mind. I said, you know what? There's got to be no such thing as ghosts because I deal with bodies every day, threat, death. In situations and I've never ever anything. And that's when I heard him say, "Where are we going?" and I saw him sit up in the rearview mirror. I turned over and I said, "You've got to be kidding."
All right, sir. I really appreciate the story. Thank you. Maybe there's something different about the expectation of a spirit that was. Frankly, expecting to wake up in good health. In other words, he was expecting to be cryonically frozen. And wake up one day in the far future, healthy, and probably well maybe at one of residence. But instead, he woke up on the way to the cryonic side. Neither here nor there. That is a freak story. Mr. Watkins, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hey, Art, how's it going?
It's getting very interesting, sir. Go right ahead.
Okay, I guess you told a haunted house story. There was a haunted house near where I grew up, big old house, and dated back to like the 1800s. But people would live there on and off up to like the 1970s, and then it was vacant. it was kind of set back on a dirt road. And we were teenagers and back in the early 80s, and we went there one night, and it was a big old house. It wasn't really dilapidated or run down. It was just nobody had lived there for a while. And I've been there a couple times, and I was showing my friends around, and there was 6 of us, 3 boys and 3 girls. And 2 of the boys, 2 friends of mine were farm boys, and down in the basement of this place was an old beat up, broken down old antique tractor, and they were down there looking at it. And me and the 3 girls were upstairs, and I was showing them this place was pretty big. It had like some old servants' quarters, which I thought was kind of neat. And I was showing them that. And so we were on the 2nd floor, and all of a sudden we heard this huge noise, big kaboom, smash, bang, someone going down the stairs, obviously. And we ran out to look, and something or someone had thrown the toilet to a 2nd floor bathroom down the stairs. Now, we didn't hear it lift out of the floor or anything. It was bolted into the floor. Remember that? There's no water, of course, hooked up. But while we were up there, something had torn that toilet out of the floor, carried it down the hall, passed us, and we didn't hear anything, and threw it down the stairs.
The toilet, both of them were right out of the floor, and then threw it down the stairs. It was not even
right, and like I said, when we didn't hear it getting torn out of the floor or anything like that. We just heard it go down the stairs, about 5 feet away from us. We were like, and the kids from the basement came running up, and the girls, of course, they wanted to light out of there as quick as could be. And I'll tell you what, I was the first one out the door myself.
There's not a lot of difference between guys and gals.
Well, while we run faster, and I'll tell you what, I ran the fastest.
That's an awesome answer. This was just about themselves and nothing you forgot. Well, for once, I agree. I would have done the exact same thing.
Hey, happy Halloween, sir.
Happy Halloween to you, sir. Alright, in the late 90s, we sold our rural home, moved into a small town of about 6,000 people. We rented a quaint little house located beside a small church and graveyard at the center of town. We moved in 1 week before Halloween. Our 4 children were eager to decorate for the occasion and deck out the house and yard, including headstones on the lawn and a flames house, which was suspended from a large willow tree beside the front door, including a very realistic dead man. We bought tons of goodies in anticipation of the throngs and ghouls of the musical night. We came and went without one ghoul racing our door, even though we observed dozens of them. We shuffling to the door across the street by midnight. We were feeling a bit dejected, very dejected, turning into the night, only getting awakened by a blood-curdling scream coming from downstairs. I rushed to the stairs to find our 11-year-old daughter trembling in fear and staring up at something. I glanced up to see a flames was suspended from seemingly nothing. I waited a few seconds and then fell to the stairs, totally freaking us all out. Needless to say, no one got any sleep that night. I'd say I found what everyone else obviously already knew. Apparently, we were living in the old church rectory, in which a former pastor of the neighboring church had hung himself. That's from Eileen in Alberta, Canada. So, as you can readily see, whether it be a whale or a priest, if the gift comes in an unseemly way, suicide, or some unexpected quick way, perhaps allowing to be frozen forevermore and then awakened one day, healthy, wealthy, if not wise. Look out, folks. Isn't it fascinating? We all hope, even pray, that there's a life after this. And yet, we don't seem all that thrilled when we hear or see evidence of it. Has it ever occurred to you? We'll be right back. The following is from Elizabeth in Morris Plains, New Jersey. My mother and I had to stay with my grandparents during World War II. My father was breastfed when I was 9 months old, and he didn't come home until I was just about 5. My grandfather owned and managed a funeral home. Professor, a very large Victorian mansion, Mom and I lived on the 3rd floor. One of the aunts and uncle was in the Air Force Station locally, so we could come home for the weekend. My grandparents' apartment was the entire 2nd floor, along with my youngest aunt. Grandpa told me when I was very young that, quote, these people are nice folks. They wouldn't hurt you. They wouldn't hurt you when you were alive, and they won't do so now. I said, okay. I was confident he told me the truth, at least until I was about 11. I made the usual walk through the casket showroom where an older man was getting ready for his annual visit. With all the hair on my head and body standing straight up, and I just knew that man was staring at me. I did a bit of whistling as I dashed out of the room and tore up the stairs to the safety of my grandmother. That night, I awoke in the very early morning hours, and there he was, standing at the foot of my bed, staring right at me. I took a deep breath and slowly pulled the covers over my head. I did not go to sleep. My ears were on super sensitive settings all night, waiting for him to make his move. It was completely terrifying. I could barely breathe, and my heart was pounding. His funeral was held at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I finally dragged his sorry ass to the cemetery. I have never in my life been so terrified. Now I'm 64 years of age. I've always wondered what his problem was. I've got a theory he was a child molester, couldn't figure out how to work on his new situation, death. I hope he stays planted. My 2nd floor bed was directly above his 1st floor casket. I would never again, never agree to sleep over another soul who would pass over. Too risky. Ron Carlone in the air.
Hi, George. How are you today?
I'm good, but I'm not George.
Oh, what? I mean,
It's an understandable mistake. Go right ahead.
Okay, so, well, I am living in Austin, Texas right now. My name is Jessica, and I am from Victoria, BC, Canada originally. And my story is about there. A couple years ago, I was going to art school and had a part-time job at a grocery store. And a part of our art lessons were to go out into various parts of Victoria and like draw buildings and such things like that. So one field trip we went to a grave site and we started drawing, tombstones and stuff. So I remember I sat down, so I'm older, anyways, I sat down and I started drawing this tombstone and this lady. There was a lady's name on there. Anyways, I started drawing it, and that's not the whole story. But a couple weeks later, I'm working at the grocery store, and I was pretty much the only one there. It was a really small grocery store, and I'm sitting there with another cashier, and in walks this lady, and I can't see her because I have my back to the door. But the other cashier that I was working with, like, we're talking, blah, blah, and she looks at me like she was so freaked out. So I turn around, and I look, and I see this weird lady with this long black dress on. I'm totally not lying. She was wearing this long black dress, long, straggly hair, gross-looking skin, like grayish tone. And I'm an artist, so I can tell like people's skin tones. Anyway, she freaked me out so much, and that was not what regular people looked like. So I screamed and ran away. That was like my first instinct, was to just scream and run away. I couldn't believe it. And once I realized that I had screamed and ran away from this lady that I'm supposed to help, like I'm in a grocery store, I realized this. I went back and said, I composed myself and I said, can I help you? And she's like, I don't know where I am, like in this really creepy voice. So I was like so freaked out by this lady. I looked at her and I was really close, and her eyes looked like they were just held up by two sticks, like it was like bugging out of her face. And I said, you don't know where you are, let me call you a cab. So I said, what's your name? And she said, it's Elizabeth. And just a couple weeks earlier, when I was drawing this tombstone, I remember what the name of that lady was, and there were fresh flowers there, and it looked like it was a fairly fresh grave, and that name was Elizabeth. And I was so freaked out by this lady. Like, she did not look like she was walking. She looked like she was floating. Like, she had no footsteps at all, and just, like, shook me out so much. It took like 5 years, I still get tripped out when I think about her.
Well, by reading that tombstone, you essentially called Elizabeth.
I have no idea, but I do know that Victoria, where I'm from in Canada, in the whole Pacific Northwest up there, is really, really big on witchcraft. And, like, I don't know if I had just seen, that parallel between the living and the dead, but that person that I saw that, like, hugged at me was not human. And I don't really tell that story very much because, like, obviously, I don't think people are going to take me seriously, but my first instinct, and I heard you were talking about this earlier, Art, was to scream and run. And I did, and I don't do that with people who are living and alive,
All right, thanks for the story. I really appreciate it. I think, if something like that happened to me, and obviously, a dead person was in front of me, floating in front of me with red skin, eyes, and just didn't look, alive, human. That's great. I'm sure I would. Mr. Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning. Yes, sir. In the truck, you got that.
I'm a trucker. You're talking good, but I'm not good stories.
Okay.
All right. I was staying with Quintus with our clients in Atlanta, Georgia a few years back on a business trip. And I rented a room from them. And one night I was calling my girlfriend back in Texas. And the line saw him dead. And when she said, well, she said, well, I think I was a demon on the line or something. I couldn't hear you. I rebuked it. And I was like, well, man, that's strange. I've never heard her say anything like that before. And I hung up the phone, turned over to sleep, and I started hearing, I didn't know what it happened that night. Everybody was gone. I started hearing kind of voices from the basement. Like, if you ever been on a lake on a calm down, you can hear somebody kind of across the water, but you can't understand what they're saying.
Sure, very well.
Exactly. And so the strange news from downstairs is, and then I start hearing this shit. And slowly something's coming up the stairs. So I'm not looking out. The bedroom doors are shut, and I can hear them. And this thing comes somewhere into my proximity. I don't understand none of that, but my ears started. I'm getting a sharp edge off. And my hands are standing on end, and all I can do from my background is I'm thinking, I'm playing. So I start playing. And after a few minutes, everything was at the rest. But I'm still like totally freaking out. And so forth. But to get through the story this out, I had no idea was haunted because this witnesses evidently had something to do with the incident there in Georgia where a minister at Straightway's church and we killed the member for the basement of the house. And it was a really strange energy going around, and I got the experience that it was uncovered.
I appreciate your story. Thank you for that. We're very, very difficult to understand a lot of cell phones. And we're fine for emergency communications and things like that for telling those stories. So well, Caroline, you're on the air.
Hi, Eric. This is Carl from Milwaukee.
How you doing?
Good. This involves my wife and her family. I met her in high school. And for a while, I went on a road, and when I came back, I met up with her again, and her father passed away, and like most of her family members, I guess, he has money donated to medical science. And 2 years after we got married and moved into this house here, I have a dream. And in a dream, it was in a cemetery. And I don't know how I knew it was her dad, because I really don't have a lot of recollection about what he looked like and sounded like, but I know it was him. And I asked, what are you doing here? And he says, I'm looking for my body. That's when I woke up. And when I woke up, I was even more scared because I couldn't move. And I called him out, but barely was able to call my wife's name twice. And the next morning, I was kind of bit better because, she didn't answer me. And I asked her, did you hear me call you? And she said, yes, I did. I said, why didn't you reply? She said, because you sounded like my father.
Well, pretty strange, all right.
I don't know if I have two explanations. I mean, I have narcolepsy, and people who have narcolepsy also have what's called cataplexy, which is paralysis. Now, which one might have altered my voice? Or it could be supernatural. I don't know. Take your.
Well, it could have been some kind of sleep paralysis, or my body could have been taken over. In other words, one could go to the other. Paralyzed, or the voice that came from you was not yours. Wrong line or on the air? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I have the story to tell you.
Okay. This is your first call?
Yes.
Okay. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Los Angeles.
All right. And you're on a cell phone too, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it goes. Go ahead.
Okay. This happened when I was about 21 years old. I had just been back from Vietnam. And I was staying with my grandmother for one day a week. She was about 88 years old. And we'd take her to church one day a week, and everyone in the family would volunteer one day. So that night, I'm sleeping in my uncle's bed. This was the heir apparent to my grandmother's estate, who died prematurely. He was going to inherit a great deal of money. And unfortunately, he died at 15 left the money. I'm laying in his bed in my grandmother's home, and I was very emotional because I really missed this man. He treated me like his son. And I said a little prayer. I said, Uncle, I miss you with all my heart. And I would give anything to have you back again. And as I was falling asleep in this back room, all of a sudden the light, great light engulfed the room, where the light permeated my eyes, even though they were closed. Like the sun had come into the room, and simultaneously the sound of chimes, or a ringing sound of wheat or chimes, suddenly became apparent, and I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I had never been so scared in all my life. Scared, possibly in Vietnam was the only other time, and I put up my eyes for a split second, and there's a piece of paper floating in the air. And I said, oh my God, I said, I know I'm not imagining this. This was real. And I jumped out of the bed, ran out of the bed to the next room, turned on the light, and my heart is jumping up and down. And my grandmother comes hobbling in from her bedroom with a cane and says, Andrew, what's wrong? And I said, Grandma, I just had a terrifying dream. She says, turn the light on and sleep with the light on. It's going to be okay. So I go to the room. On the floor is a piece of paper, and on the paper is handwriting that I asked several of my aunts and uncles, and he said it was my uncle's handwriting. He had been dead for about 6 7 months.
And what was written there?
Good question. It was his doodling. He would doodle on earth, like just nothing that he makes sense out of.
Okay, but what's his handwriting? You saw the paper in midair.
I swear to Almighty God, I saw it floating in the air, touching the ground. That's when I knew I wasn't dreaming. I knew, and the sound of chimes. And I had heard one other story.
Okay, well, we're going to keep it to one story per customer, but that was a good one. And I am convinced that people who pass away really have a strong enough will to do something. They can do it. Mr. Rockies, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm calling in to tell a ghost story.
Okay, I'm hearing clicking on the line.
I just turned off the radio.
Okay, again, I'm hearing a lot of clicking. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from my house in San Francisco, California.
It's okay.
I'm taking upstairs where the receiver is. I was calling to tell the story about this place I used to live in. It was in San Jose.
Okay, I'm going to have to pass on this one. We're going to have to try to get reconnected. That was a very bad clicking sound. First one's on the line, you're on the air.
Yeah. Hi, Art. I guess I'm a first time and probably a loud time caller as well. Well, I was going to tell you, it was in the mid 80s. I was quite a youngster. My brother and I were a couple troublemakers. Being from Idaho, you can guess that we're kind of like kids in a stick. We thought we'd scare some people with the Ouija board. We had a Halloween party, and along with the bobbing for apples. Have you ever tried the bob for apples?
Oh, sure.
It's pretty tough. But anyway, we decided to get a Ouija board and scare our friends. So I had quite a good memory. I remembered pretty near every number I've ever dialed on the phone back then. And so my brother was going to make the noises, the ghost noises, and I was going to recall these numbers to prove that the Ouija board would work.
Okay.
So we had quite a few skeptics in the room, being teenagers and what. And, they asked the question, well, what's the phone number for the theater? Of course, I knew it from memory. Dramatically moved the Ouija board around and came up with the right numbers. And the head skeptic, Jim, had a phone book there, and he was verifying the numbers. And I had to stretch my mind quite a few times, remembering things like the grocery store, et cetera, but I got them all right. And my brother, he would slip off in the other room and would make some different types of noises. And I'm telling you, I really had to choke back the laughter a few times because I'd look at people's faces and they were as white as ghosts, and because they would hear the culmination of hearing the noise he was making and with my numbers that I was getting. Well, anyways, we heard a blood-curdling scream, and when we jumped up, I jumped up. I couldn't believe my brother made that noise. We rushed in, and here my brother was speechless. And I was very shocked. I couldn't figure out what had happened. And I gave him a wink, and he gave me a wink back, and everything seemed to be okay. He joined us back in the room, took the phone book, and I did another number. Well, this time, Jim, the skeptic, asked me a number that I had no way of knowing. A women's lingerie shop that was local to the town here. How am I going to remember that? Anyways, I just made a number up out of the clear blue. As it turns out, the next day, my brother verified that was the correct number in the book. I thought he was pulling a prank on me and agreeing with it, but as it turns out, that was true. The number was true.
Well, you got it, sir. The Ouija board, unfortunately, works. It's Halloween. Actually, in the hours just after, and sometimes almost when this goes away, one story per customer, one quotes, make it your best. And if it doesn't scare you, it probably won't scare us. And if at all possible, please do not use a cell phone. They're just too difficult to understand, and you miss certain little parts. At any rate, in minutes, back to Ghost to Ghost AM. The following is from John in Ferndale, Washington. During the 80s, I worked for a university in the Department of Journalism that had offices in an old Victorian house located on campus. A beautiful old structure with 3 floors and widow's walk overlooking the bay. It was during the summer. The faculty was gone. I was left alone attending the routine of the office. At first, I noticed a child cry upon checking family number. However, the desperate sound would continue over the summer, often interrupting the work. My office was located on the second floor in what used to be a bedroom. And along the hall with a floating window at the head of the stairs, it became increasingly difficult to mount the stairs, past the window, to go to my office. So I had to pass through an atmosphere that was chillingly cold, and somehow, on the third floor was what used to be a servant's quarters, but were now used for storage. I had the keys to all the rooms. I was able to open the door that was located at the end of the third floor hall, though I tried repeatedly with my friend, who was intensely interested in all paranormal things, expressed an interest in investigating the old house. That Saturday was rain and wet, thoroughly depressing. It made even more so about the house. We entered, went through the room, my friend doing nothing until we reached the third floor. Amazingly, she was able to unlock the door that I've been unable to do if she did it with ease. It's one open to reveal a room papered in yellow floral hanging in tatters, ragged curtains of the window. Upon the floor, in a thick layer of dust, was a child's tiny footprint. My friend said, "We've got to get out of the house now." Taking a piece of torn paper before I shut off the door, we left, fighting our way down the stairs through what appeared to be a warm, cold vortex. Hand over hand, gripping the banister, we forced our trembling feet, step by step, until we thankfully reached the lower hall. Backward glance revealed 3 columns of gray fog interspersed with pinpoints of light. I was shaking so badly I could hardly insert the key and lock the old front door. Later, my friend took a piece of the wallpaper from a psychic who informed her it had come from a nursery. The child, a little boy, had fallen down the stairs and broken his neck. His mother had gone insane with grief, had been locked away in the third floor by her husband, an abusive man. The friend continued to haunt the property. Even though the house was torn down and the land turned into a parking lot, still, late at night, if you look carefully as you drive by, you can see a gray-blue light spiraling up from the pavement. Mr. Watkins, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hi, is this Ghost Line?
It is.
Oh, this is my first time calling.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to tell you a story.
Okay.
I've been listening all night.
What is your first name?
Ginny.
Ginny. And where are you?
I'm in Gregstaff, Oregon.
Okay. Fire away.
Okay. Well, when I was 17, I had gotten really, really sick. And I was in bed. My mom had covered me with a lot of blankets. And when I woke up, I was, all the blankets were over my head. And I could feel somebody shaking me. So I flipped the blankets off me, and standing there was a man that had, I had a glowing orange, one of those electric heaters in the corner of my room.
Oh, yes.
And what I saw was I could see he had blonde hair, he had green eyes, he was wearing a plaid shirt, jeans, and when I got scared was because I saw that he was floating. He was about a foot off the floor.
Boy, I'm curious. If he was shaking, the last thing I would have done was throw the covers off me. I'd probably bury myself in them.
Well, that's what I did. I gave the covers right back over my head. I screamed for my mom.
Yeah.
And nobody came, and I tried to listen for footsteps going out of the door. Even though I could see through him, I could see my orange finger in the background.
Right through him.
I could see right through him, and I could still see him. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Perfectly clearly. So I didn't hear any footsteps. Nobody left. My mom didn't come in the room, and so I peeked out underneath the covers to make sure nobody was standing there. And I walked out went down my hallway. When I got to the end of the hallway, I passed the kitchen. Nobody was in the kitchen. Nobody was in the dining room. I get to the living room, and the TV was on, and it was all static. It was like just a static channel. And I stood there. Nobody was there. I looked in all the bedrooms because bedrooms were to the right, and nobody was in the house. And the TV switched off, and I skipped off out of the front door, and I ran next door, and that's where my mom was. She told me it was just a dream. So 5 years later, I saw the same spirit. He had come to me in a dream and taken me to a room and was telling me that my boyfriend, which was my son's father at the time, was going to hurt me. And I said, no, he's not going to hurt me. He would never hurt me. He said, you need to get out. He's going to hurt you. I said, why should I have to get out? I don't want to leave my things. These are my things. I shouldn't have to leave. He's not going to hurt me. And he goes, you need to get out. And he screamed, get out, really loud. And then all of a sudden I was back in my bed and he was floating over me. And the next thing I knew is I had landed on my back on the floor right next to where my son's father was sleeping. And it was like a bounce from my bed onto the floor. I didn't roll, just bounce. And the next day we did get in an argument. And right there, in the spot where I had landed the night before, he choked me until I believe I was dead. And he couldn't wake me up. He said I had turned blue. And he was slapping me, and I could hear him slapping me, and I could hear him talking, but I couldn't feel it. And he was crying, his tears were dripping on my face, but I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't remember anything. But if I ever see that entity again, or that spirit, I will absolutely listen instead of argue.
I guess you get a warning like that, it means something. It's hard to know, isn't it? If somebody comes to you, you can imagine it's in a dream, and I suppose the first instinct is breathe, particularly after it's over for a while. Your mind does this, kind of protective nature. Well, it was a dream. And then, of course, when it comes true, it's always. On the third line, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. How you doing?
Doing well, sir.
This is Finch from West Jarvis, Massachusetts.
Welcome.
When I was, this is 1965 story. When I was about 5 years old, my mom had to go work with my dad who owned a pharmacy, and they were out late, and she called and said they were going to be very late. So my older brothers and sisters were in charge of watching us. And long story short, first thing that went wrong that night is we had a TV downstairs and one upstairs, and there was no cable then for satellite TV. The TV upstairs started broadcasting like 10 seconds after the one downstairs, which started freaking everybody out.
That is weird, yeah.
Yeah, and then by the time we had to go to bed, my older sisters, Susan and Cindy, they had the downstairs bedroom, we had the upstairs bedroom. So all the boys upstairs started screaming because we saw a shadow man on the wall, because we had a stereo that was turned down, but the light allowed you to see it. And we ran downstairs in her room. She thought we were nuts. Then we were all in her room downstairs. They opened the door, peeked out into the living room, and we all saw it again. And when my parents got home, they didn't believe any of us. TV or the shadow man looked with a hat that looked like Lincoln.
Well, the story about the TVs is very interesting. In this modern day, you can observe such a difference in transmissions, for example, from a C-band signal. So, I'm talking about C-band satellite signal. And then one that comes in on P-band, you can notice a 5 to 8 second delay. But with respect to what he's talking about, that would indicate some sort of time distortion, if you will, that could be real. On the international line, you're on the air. Hello. Hello. Once, twice, long, east of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Is this Howard?
It is. Now turn your radio off, please.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. Oh, my gosh. I didn't know. I've been trying to get a hold of you for years. I'm a long-time listener.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, you're on the air.
Okay. I got a ghost story, and it's a real true thing. My uncle passed away back in the early 70s, and we went to his funeral. And I was just about 8 or 9 years old, and I got twin brothers, and the whole family went down there. My dad flies an airplane, so we flew down there to get to his funeral. Before we went down there, my uncle said that he would come up and visit our new house. We just moved to a new house on the lake, and he never got to see it. And he said, well, I'll be up there on that Thursday. My uncle said that, and but he passed away before he got a chance to come up and visit the house. So we went down to the funeral and flew back up to Michigan, and on that Thursday that he said he was going to be there, my brother and I, my twin, shared a bedroom, and we had hardwood floors on the floor, and we started hearing somebody walking on the floor, and we're going, I'm shaking, my bed was on one side of the room, and his bed was on the other side of the room, and we were just walking on the floor. I got scared. I jumped over to my brother's bed, and we're hugged up against the wall, and we left the door open, and all of a sudden we seen this figure come into the room, and my uncle was dressed real nice. I mean, cop hat, he was a car salesman, and restaurant owner, and he was dressed real nice, and he wore glasses, and he just, we're leaning, up against the wall, shaking like leaves, and you just couldn't believe it, the feeling that I had, and we had.
So there was no question about who it was.
Yeah, it was my uncle. He was in that room, and he peeked in the door and looked over at my brother and I, and then he went downstairs, and then all of a sudden a bunch of banging noises started going off downstairs in the kitchen. And my dad came in. He says, "What the heck are you guys doing?" To my brother and I, He says, what are you guys doing? We said, "We ain't doing nothing. We just saw Uncle." And he
sure.
Yeah, well, my dad went down to investigate because my dad saw something going downstairs. He thought it was my brother and I,
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there's a certain period of time after you die, when you do have an opportunity to do something like that man obviously did. He had intended to make that visit, and I wonder if there is a certain period of time after you pass when you can accomplish or finish or send a message or cause people, piece of paper to fly in the middle of the room or something so that somebody knows that you're on the other side. Mr. the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello? Once, twice, gone. Mr. the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. Turn your radio.
Oh, I got my finger on the radio.
There you go.
Am I on there?
You are.
Oh, this is Kat from Idaho. I'm a Paul Reader. I was reading up in Newtown, just coming from Salt Lake City on the way to Yellowstone Park. And had a little gal, a lady come up, and I said, now in your right hand, if you ever had a visit from a guardian spirit or angel, it'll show in your hand. And she had one that came right in when she was 17 years old. And I said, here's a visit with a guardian angel, 17. She says, no. She says, my girlfriend saw my dead mother. She says, my mother died when I was 12. And she says, when we were 17, my dead mother appeared to my girlfriend in her bedroom. She said, I wasn't there. She said, I was coming home from a ball game. I was a cheerleader. And she said, I stopped at the Shell station to get gas. And she said, I ran into some motorcycle gang there. And I was in kind of a nefarious position with the guys that kind of backed her into the alley. And she said that my dead mother, appeared to my girlfriend in her bedroom. And she says, the spirit spoke to her and it says, go help Holly, Shell.
And so her girlfriend said, and I looked in her hand, and gosh darn, she had line right at the same place, age 17. And the lady said, she said, my dad, she appeared to my dad too. And she said, and the father walked over, and I looked in his hand, and right there at age 39, he had line going onto his timeline. And I said, what happened? He said, 11 o'clock at night, and I sat there reading the newspaper. He said, I looked up on the wall, there was a big, huge painting of my dead wife. And he said, I swear those lips have moved. And he said, go help Holly now. Shell, the lady's name was Holly. She said, go help Holly now. And he said, it was the strangest thing. And he said, and his daughter walked in and saw the same thing. He said, let's go. They jumped in the car and took off for town. They lived 3 miles out. The girlfriend jumped in her car and she took off too. And they all headed for town looking for Holly. Well, they found Holly, and the motorcycle gang was just about that close to raping that little girl. And they saved her and brought her home. Now I said to the father, I said, well, what age were you when this Holly was born? He says, well, I was 22 years old. Well, 22 plus 17 is 39. So the lines all matched up exactly when the dead mother appeared to the girlfriend and to the father, and the dead mother said, go help Holly, Shell.
I wonder if,
Shell Station.
well, I wonder if there is a period of time, again, when you can get something done, get a message across, or perhaps help somebody. If they're in some sort of desperate strait, as the girl obviously was, if that can really be done. If it's significant enough, if it's a matter of life and death, maybe we can cross. First time going along, you're on the air.
Hey, I was going to tell you a story about when I was young and foolish reading ghost stories. My husband worked late, and I was reading this classic story about by 1, by 2, by 3. A man who had a group of friends who got together for a big meal every year, and always one was missing, and got down to 2 left. And the subject came up, what happened to our friend? Well, we really don't know. And so the guy asked him to go down to the cellar to get a bottle of wine. And at that time, we lived in a little 20-foot trailer, and it was about 12 o'clock at night. It was really late. And
I'll tell you what, we're coming up on the break. We'll get right there. When we get back, we'll continue with that story, okay? Can you hold on?
I sure can.
Okay, good. Stay right there. We'll be right back. And if you want to hand Coast to Coast AM. Always on Hallows Eve. I'm Art Bell, and we'll be right back. All right, as promised, back to the first time going line. Catch us up and go right ahead.
Is that me?
That's you.
Okie doke. I was reading this book, and we lived in this little town trailer out in an orchard where scary things happen sometimes. And I was reading about this man whose friends visited him once a year, and they had all mysteriously begun to disappear. And we were talking about what happened to old folks. So, time for wine, and the guy said, why don't you go down to the cellar? You got a really good bottle of wine. So this guy goes down in the cellar, and it's a winding staircase. It's dark, it's gloomy, and there's these hooks, 2 pairs of hooks. And he looks up, and he's going down, and he sees the devil himself with the red glowing eyes, and of course he knew what happened to his friends, and he slams this great door between them, and I was imagining the exchange of the screaming and yelling going between them. About that time, something fell on the top of this little tin roof of the trailer we lived in, and it was a big thump, and then a scream and a scratch went all the way down the outside of the trailer. 2 cats were fighting, fell out of the tree, and were trying to hang on to the tin, scratched all the way down. Well, I was laying there. I couldn't breathe. I was so frightened. I was so caught up in the story. My husband came home. I don't know how long I'd been there. I was scared and drooling with my eyes open. He said, what? And he rose. happened to you when I read the story. He read it. He said to me, first thing you do in the morning, you get up and burn this book. Don't you ever read that kind of stuff. I burned it.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Watkins, you're on air.
Hi,
Hi.
this is Elliot out of Arizona.
Listen.
When I was like 9, 10 years old, my mother and my grandmother and we all went on a picnic and out in the country to this lake. And as it was getting dark, well, we decided to leave. And my grandmother took the wrong turn. And she didn't realize it. And we were traveling down this dirt road for a long ways. And she realized that she went the wrong way. And we pulled up to this driveway. And by this time it was night. And there was a glowing pillar that we noticed off the side of the road. It was like bluish white pillar. And we started driving up closer to it. And I remember my mother started screaming, back the car up, and she started beating her hands on the dashboard. And we could see it was an apparition of a woman, and it was drifting towards the car. And, yeah, and so we're getting the heck out of there.
You also saw it.
Yeah.
And it was indeed an apparition of a woman.
Yes. All three of us seen it.
All right. And so you beat feet and got out of there.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. As I would do, you see, the lines are just chock full. There's thousands of people trying to call with those stories. Now, what do you make of that? So many people have seen so much. There's got to be something to it. Mr. Watkins, you're on the air.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah. We must have hung up on the phone or something happened. I called earlier about my uncle passing away and all that.
Okay.
Well,
Did we not get the end of the story or what?
yeah, I want to tell you the end of the story. Well, the beginning of the story was that my brother and I were held. My uncle passed away, and we had to fly down to Indiana. And my uncle showed up in our bedroom. And we heard him walking on our floor.
Yeah, I recall.
Okay. Well, anyway, to finish up the story, when my dad went downstairs and because he heard some ruckus going down there in the kitchen, and the pots and pans were laying all over the floor. And my dad had seen something go down the stairway, and then the pots and pans were all over the floor. And then later, my dad told me told us, he saw Uncle, and then my dad passed away here a few years ago, and in my dream, and this is real weird. My dream and I guess two other brothers, we all had the same dream. And that night, then my dad passed away, and we dreamed that Dad was up in heaven, and there was a big crowd blowing, thousands and thousands of people. And my uncle was up there to greet him, and my dad just looked so great. And he just had the biggest smile on his face, and he just twitched his eyes and nodded his head like.
Okay, well, listen, we're going to hold it right there. I appreciate the recall, and I do recall that story. So just a dream, sort of all that. Robert, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. This is Robert from Florida. Good insight.
Hey, Robert.
About 10 years ago, I was in my apartment, and I was reading a book. It was The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. And it was around midnight, Saturday night. And I had like a collection of comic book action figures just kind of lined up on a shelf. Like Superman and Batman and so on. And one of them was was Morbius, the living vampire, which is a good guy in the Marvel Comics storyline. But he's a pretty sinister looking character. And they were way up on a shelf above a set of dresser drawers. And so I'm reading the book, and it's midnight, and the room doesn't shake, a truck doesn't drive by. There wasn't like a gust of wind or anything, but the Morbius figure, and only that figure, plopped off the shelf and landed into an open drawer of underwear. At the time, it's funny. It's kind of weird, but, I don't know if maybe somebody was, if the spirits were trying to say anything about me or, trying to be funny. But, at the time, at 12 in the morning, especially when you're reading The Exorcist, it's a little creepy.
Maybe Morbius just had a big finish.
I guess.
Anything more to it?
No, that was it.
That was it.
Kind of weird.
Okay, thank you very much for the call. And Wildcard Line, you're on the air.
Hey, Art.
Hello, turn your radio off, please.
Sorry about that. This is Andrew in Las Vegas.
Yes, sir.
I got this great story I got to tell you. We used to live in this old house. It's about 50 years old here in Las Vegas. And one night, my dad's like, so there's this guy in the valley who's doing a show called Coast to Coast, and you're doing Ghost to Ghost tonight. So it's the first time I ever listened to your show. And so it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I got up to turn off the radio. I had a remote. So I clicked it, the radio turned off, then I turned right back on again. And I clicked it again. Turned off, turned right back on. This went on for a couple minutes. I went to the radio, pulled it out of the wall, and the other room, the radio turned on and dialed in to Ghost to Ghost.
Well, that is the power of this program, sir.
Yeah, so I was waiting to tell you that.
That's a true story.
True story. And the next morning I went in and I had that radio set to FM, and you guys on AM, and it was changed to AM, so it really happened. And it was off too.
Power. I appreciate the call, sir. Thank you. Yes, indeed, power. Wildcard Line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Turn the radio off, please.
Yeah. Stop.
Okay.
I'm Alex from Connecticut. The story's actually about me, but I worked at EMT and I had a partner who grandma was in Waterbury, Connecticut, and there was one room in her house where everybody in his family, if they ever slept in there, had horrible nightmares, could never sleep, always had a problem. And no one in her family could say they saw some guy walking around his grandmother's house. He never seen it, never stayed at her house, stayed in that room. He had the best night's sleep of anywhere he ever slept, sleeping in a rock. Well, one day he's at his house, a few towns away, and he's sleeping, and in his dream, he wakes up and he sees this man from turn of the century clothing, like long waistcoat, top hat, and he's in his grandmother's house and sees this guy walking up the stairs to his grandmother's bedroom. She gets him and follows this guy. And as soon as he gets up the stairs, he hears this blood-curdling scream and just bright white light. He wakes up instantaneously. Well, the next day he's talking to his family, and none of his family ever told him what this guy looked like before. But for some reason, his family's just talking about what this ghost in his grandmother's house looks like. And it turns out it looks exactly like this guy that he saw in his dream. On top of that, his grandmother had her bedroom remodeled, and it's room that everybody always had problems in. She had to stay in that room while her bedroom was being remodeled. She stayed there for a couple months while her bedroom was being remodeled, and she kept getting all of his ailments while she was in that room, including at one point in time, she got that flushing bacteria and being treated. And start to get better, and then she goes sleeping in the room again, and it get worse again. As soon as she went back into her bedroom, after it was remodeled, she never had any more problems.
Boy, that's fascinating. What are really called places that are bad? Just literally bad places where not only do you not get a good night's sleep, but you get sick. Wildcard Line, you're on the air.
Oh, Art.
Yes, sir.
This is Jared. Right now I'm just east of
Dallas, and Houston actually. And I thought, I know you hate the cell phones, but this one's about a cat, and I knew you'd enjoy this one. I lived in a 31-foot low zero trailer, and I had a cat, lived by myself in Bellingham, Washington. And I'd come home after work, and after locking my door, and the door would be open, and the cat would be out. And this went on for days, and I'd go on for a weekend, I'd come home, and I'll be darned if that door would be open. Nothing would be missing or stolen, but the cat would be out. So I figured, well, maybe that crazy cat is opening the door from the inside by getting up on the couch. So I fixed it so it absolutely could not do that. Well, I came home one night after work, and the door was closed. So I was thrilled about that, because that's like coming home and finding your darn house open for the world to get into. And but the cat was gone. And I was thinking, well, where in the world did that cat go? Well, those old travel trailers, they have a rear bathroom. So you go to the bathroom, and there's twin beds on either side. I don't know if you know that kind of trailer, but there's these big drawers that pull out for your clothes and whatnot. And so anyway, so I'm looking for the cat, and I how you call a cat, I hear this real faint meow sound, and I'm thinking, well, where in the world? And it sounds like it's coming down from underneath the trailer. So I go outside and get on my hands and knees, look into the trailer. Well, there's no cat there. I go inside and I look into the couch and hear this faint meow noise. And so anyway, so I'm throwing on my hands and knees. You can imagine going from one end of that trailer to the other on the inside. And I finally get to where the twin beds are. And I hear this faint meow. Well, I pull this drawer. There's some cavities underneath these beds. One side has a big water tank, and the other side has this hollow cavity where the fender well is. There is absolutely no way anything can get back in there. But here I pull this big drawer out with all my clothes and everything. That's the only access point to that cavity back there. And that cat was back there. And it shot out of there like a shot, and it ran out the door, and it was gone for 2 days. But there was no way that cat could have got back in there. You have to physically pull this big, giant drawer full of clothes out in order for anything to get access back to that cavity back there, and that cat was back there.
Well, maybe that cat had powers that we never wonder about. Cats are very strange, mystical creatures. It was well said that the Egyptians worship cats, and cats have never forgotten that. Well, go live on the air.
Hi, Art. Thanks for having me on the program.
Sure.
My problem is that I'm possessed by 3 ghosts.
You are possessed by 3 ghosts?
Yes, I know who they are. They're famous people.
How do you know that?
What they told me. I called them, really. I made a mistake.
In other words, you call these 3 famous ghosts to you?
Yes.
Big mistake.
Yes. They're evil witches.
Oh,
Yes.
and so what are you going to do?
Well, I know how to kill them.
Exorcise them?
Well, I want to kill their ghosts. What I want to do.
How do you kill ghosts?
Well, their names are Carlos Castaneda, Carol Chiggs, and Nuri Alexander. If everyone joins together in trying to bash them, we could win. Kill these predators.
Jesus, why do you think you already told me? You called her. Out of curiosity, why did you do that?
Well, he's famous for his book, so he promised to help everybody who tried to approach him and go into the other world, but turns out they were predators. They were tricking everybody.
I want to see an exorcist, actually. First time, put a wire on the air.
Hey, Art, I'm in. All right, great. How are you doing tonight?
I'm just fine, sir. It's been a long time here, so
Here we go. This is it. Okay. Well, okay. I'm escorting my good friend of mine. She's a friend, and his boyfriend just died. And so we get there. I knew the guy, but not very well. So I leave her alone for a moment, which, you know, there's a great guy with the boyfriend. And I'm walking, and I come across this brother of bridge that someone should be laid down to rest tomorrow, the next day. So I, crazy as it was, I was in my early 20s. I go, wow, how would it feel to just lay down and come back there? So I jumped in, I jumped in, right? And, oh boy. And so, that night, I'm in bed, and the lady appears, right? And she goes, you know, I really don't appreciate you laying where I'm going to be laid to rest, you know? In other words, boy, oh boy, it was a day like that. It was something else. It was boy, you know, I guess I'm being say that because the thing is, after she was visiting her boyfriend, it was just after we getting dark too. It was just getting starting to get dark when we went. And anyway, she started to come up for me, right? and I hear her calling me, and I go, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You know? And so I come up out of this whole, you know, the hole there, and boy, she was scared to death. She saw me coming out of that hole, and it was something else. Boy, she comes real, I laugh out so fast. She was so mad at me after that.
I visit the Great American Southwest.